You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-commerce strategy, technology and CX-focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialists James Gedd and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-commerce strategy of leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX. Thanks for tuning in to our key vendor update, and this is for the second half of 2025. We last caught up with our key vendors in January 2025. So this episode is your chance to hear directly from the leadership teams at 7 key e-commerce platforms. To hear, we focus on 3 things. Number 1 is, what are the key trends they're seeing globally that are influencing their overall business strategy, and why is that important, do they think? And that's really to help you understand what are the influences that drive decision-making across different vendors. Then it's looking at go-to-market strategy. So how are they evolving in terms of the type of business they are focused on and why? And how does that play out across different regions, different verticals, split between B2B, B2C, etc. That's really useful for merchants wanting to understand how closely different vendors play to their specific business model. And then finally, it's about product roadmap. So what are some of the key things that have landed in the last 6 months since we spoke to them? And what's coming up and where are they focused and why? So I hope you really enjoy this. We enjoy doing the interviews. There are 7 vendors we have in no particular order because we're not prioritizing or putting these in order of what we're saying is important vendors in the market. It's completely arbitrary running order as it is every time. So we have Centra, we have Shopify, BigCommerce, Scayle, Commerce Layer, Remarkable Commerce, and Shopline. All the contact details for the leaders from each of those vendors is on the landing page on the website. And do reach out if you've got any questions, or if you want to chat to me and Paul about any of these vendors, because we work with a few of them and we've obviously implemented several of these platforms for different merchants. Happy to provide some objective advice as well. And now let's turn our attention to Centra, who have featured on this podcast many, many times. And a warm welcome to Jenny Xue, who's the product marketing manager. Hey, Jenny, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I did, thanks. And before we start recording this, Jenny was trying to teach me how to pronounce her name correctly, and I've probably done a really bad disservice to it, so I apologize.
I think you pretty much got it. Like, that was excellent. So kudos to you for getting that so quickly.
It was better than the first attempt, let's put it that way, which was truly awful. So, Jenny, you've not been on the podcast before, so before we get into the questions and the update on Centra, do you want to give people a bit of a flavour of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jenny. I lead product marketing here at Centra. I actually started about 6 months ago, still relatively new to Centra, but have worked in e-commerce in the past. So it was actually at Shopify for a few years before. But now I am leading product marketing here at Centra.
Amazing. From Shopify to Centra, so yeah, deep knowledge of the ecosystem. And look, thanks for coming on. And this is a great opportunity for people to hear directly from leading voices at Centra about where you guys are at and where you're seeing the market. So the first question we've got for people today is around the current global e-commerce market. The things are shifting all the time, and there's lots of turbulence coming from the US for one area. I mean, the world's not the most stable place at the moment. So I'd love to hear, what are the trends that you're seeing in the market that are influencing how you're thinking strategically at Centra?
So I think we'll start off with kind of like, what are the challenges our clients are seeing, and tie it into some of the like macro trends that you were talking about, like US tariffs. So I think the main themes that we're seeing is that margin pressure is just a huge concern for a lot of fashion brands. It's always kind of been a, priority, but now with increasing costs around acquisition of new customers, because of increasing ad costs, increasing competition, the cost of return logistics, with more consumers still, wanting brands to offer free returns. It's putting a lot of downward pressure on companies, to make money. And to your point around US tariffs, brands are also, struggling to find ways to, make sure that, they're not losing margin around the increased cost of logistics of selling into the States, as well as, potential loss of demand if they decide to increase their prices. And then the second thing, I wanted to talk about is just brands are also looking to optimize performance across their sales channels. So we're seeing in B2B, brands are looking to meet the evolving demands of buyers. Buyers are now looking to, streamline the experience of purchasing from brands. They want something that is more akin to like the D2C purchasing experience where they could self-serve, and it's less of the manual spreadsheets that we've seen in the past, I guess, few years within the industry. We're also seeing on the D2C side, shoppers are inundated with options and they're comparing options before they purchase. They're now also browsing across different channels. They're looking across mobile. They're also buying more on mobile and social. So brands are increasingly facing pressure to deliver more personalized experiences across multiple channels, ultimately to drive, conversions from their shoppers. So how that really shapes our strategy. So at the core, Centra is purpose-built for fashion and lifestyle brands. We want to give brands the tools to sell globally and also offer local experiences in different markets across D2C and B2B, all in a way that simplifies kind of the complexity of selling globally for these brands. And I think that's something that touches upon optimization and giving brands the flexibility and performance to actually, scale as they grow.
Excellent. So let's look at the go-to-market focus. And I know that Centra has always spoken very clearly about fashion and lifestyle brands are its told. It's not trying to be everything to everyone. And I think that really massively helps brands when they're trying to think about which vendors are relevant and which aren't. But obviously within fashion and lifestyle, it's huge. So you've got different geographies, you've got different sized businesses, you've got businesses that are D2C only, businesses that are B2B, B2C. So I'd love to hear where is Centra focused at the moment? Like, are you moving more enterprise? Are you focusing on specific geographies? Is this changing?
Yeah, for sure. So right now, our focus is primarily around mid-market to enterprise size fashion and lifestyle brands. In terms of our kind of geographical focus, obviously we have great saturation within Scandinavian markets, but right now we are shifting towards the UK and other European markets. So we're seeing like great adoption within the UK market. We've recently signed brands like Hush, John Smithly, like UK and other UK heritage brands that, are looking to expand their digital presence. So I would say that's kind of our focus right now. And ultimately, growth within the EU market is our top priority.
And where is B2B fits in this? Because I know I think this is the lesser known part of Centra, because Centra's brand portfolio, especially Scandinavian brands, is like they're huge, they're amazing brands with likes of Nudies, Askia, etc. But I think people in the UK and other European countries know less about the B2B, but you've got some B2B retailers who are like $100 million plus. So I'd love to know where is that part going to? Is it expanding, or is it is it about moving into different territories again for B2B?
Yeah. So on the B2B side, we are, still similar to D2C, focused on kind of growing within the UK territory. So focusing on, any fashion brand that is looking to expand their wholesale presence, and not obviously within just the UK geography, but globally. So really our target audience is any fashion brand that is looking to expand globally within both D2C and the B2B or fashion wholesale space.
Okay, thanks. And now let's look at the product roadmap. That's the most exciting bit that people listen obviously want to hear about. And we last spoke to Martin, who I know is now moving into the chief product role, which is going to be exciting. And we'll be talking to him, I think, next month about this. And we talked to him around the roadmap from like the last 6 months of last year and what was coming up. So I'd love to hear what has changed. Like, what are the key things that have landed in the last 6 months, and what can merchants look forward to in the future? Where are you headed?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to give you a bit of a breakdown of what we launched and what we kind of have coming up. But I'll just, I guess, kick off with kind of what our product strategy is. So we build our product and features around enabling fashion brands in order to scale into new markets within both D2C and B2B without adding any additional complexity or operational overhead. So, teams can easily manage product launches, campaigns, while also delivering an on-brand experience that turns shoppers into loyal customers, which I think is quite important in today's economic conditions where it's becoming more expensive to get new customers. And a lot of brands are, trying to build more loyalty with their existing customer base. So to break down kind of the launches that we've done recently, I believe Martin actually mentioned on the last podcast, we did a redesign of the showroom. So that's also been a priority in terms of what we've launched recently, enhancing the whole wholesale experience. So not just on the front end with our Centra showroom, which is essentially our B2B storefront, but also on the back end, helping teams actually manage the operational side. So we've launched an enhanced pricing management tool so that brands can actually set pricing for future delivery windows so that it gives their buyers pricing transparency, but also helps brands protect their margin, especially in today's environment where costs are ever, evolving. And then breaking down some of the features that we have coming up, again, it is kind of focused on making the operational complexity of a scaling brand a lot simpler. So we are actually looking into tapping into AI to help brands go to market faster. So one of the pain points that our, fashion brands kind of face is localization is a bit of a bottleneck around international growth. Brands either have to tap into external resources, external systems in order to build, localized content experiences. So we're actually looking at releasing AI-powered translations later on this year to help reduce some of that resource strain so that brands can focus more on selling and less on the operational side of expansion. And then another trend that's really, driving this next release is, increase in personalization. So in D2C, personalization is a huge, I think, buzzword for everyone and is really key strategic priority to drive personalized experiences for shoppers. So we're looking at actually improving our discounting engine. So Martin may have mentioned this in previous podcasts, but we have a very robust discounting engine already where essentially any user can create advanced if this then that logic discounts. We're actually improving the experience by creating a brand new visual discount builder. So it reduces the time to actually create these sophisticated discounts. And it means essentially anyone can create very sophisticated discounts. It means brands can also test and learn different types of discounts quickly and, learn and evolve and, I guess, adapt for any kind of future campaigns. And then on the D2C side, we are looking to enhance the overall developer experience to build a storefront. So we've actually launched a closed beta for a new GraphQL API for storefront development. And this new API not only delivers better speed, performance, and also obviously gives brands creative freedom to showcase themselves for shoppers, but it helps them also manage that during high traffic periods so that they can, manage Black Friday sales, holiday sales with ease and not lose any sales due to downtime. So we've actually seen clients like Weekday adopt the new GraphQL API, and they've actually increased their conversion rates by almost double. And we've made enhancements to obviously improve the developer experience so that it's easier to build on Centra. And ultimately, it's also giving brands the performance that they need to drive more conversions.
Interesting about the discounts. It's an area that, in fashion, it's critical. The number, the volume and the complexity and the stacking and the tiers of discounts is really hard to achieve in some platforms without going to a specialist third-party platform, which can be expensive, or do lots of custom work. So that'll be quite interesting for a lot of people to hear. And if anyone listening has had their interest piqued by any of these areas and wants to get into more technical detail or wants to see a demo of how this can work, how do they reach out?
So they can visit our website and book a demo directly through Centra.com.
If you're listening, the landing page on InsideCommerce.fm will have links to both Jenny and Centra.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Jenny, thanks so much. Lovely to meet and have you on the pod for the first time, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being able to, give you some insight in terms of what's happening here at Centra.
Now let's look at Shopline, and I'm really happy to welcome back David Meakin, who's the commercial director. Hey, David, good to have you back on the podcast.
No, James, thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It certainly feels like it's been a busy last 12 months for the Shopline team. Lots going on. So let's start with the kind of like the strategic lens of it, like the global e-commerce market. Because one thing that we're always keen to hear, and I know our listeners like to hear, is how different vendors perceive the market and how that then shapes their strategy. So like, what trends do you guys see out there that are actively shaping whether it's go-to-market or your product strategy?
Yeah, it has definitely been a very busy year. We put more customers live this year than in any of our previous years in the EMEA market. So it's been very exciting, but very busy. I think some of the trends we've been working on for a while, not much has changed since we've opened just only 2.5 years ago. Everyone's talking obviously about AI, and I think we've been playing in that space for a long time now, since before it was a massive buzzword and before ChatGPT. As you know, James, like Shopline has 60 core components of things we think all merchants need to trade online successfully. And so we've got so many different touch points of all of the areas through a customer journey. And in every single touch point, basically, our own proprietary AI is working to assist merchants to trade online with more automation and more successfully. So in 2023, we released the ability to create the complete store with AI. It was a bit primitive then, but now that functionality creates more advanced pages that are SEO optimized and helps you decide what perks should go into each different tier of a loyalty program, for example. So that's getting massively more advanced. And I think the second trend is more and more merchants are asking us how we can go international even smoother than before. So we've released more merchant of record services, better ability to merchandise your store in different markets properly, the way older legacy platforms have only up until now done successfully. And years ago, I think we met a long time ago when we were working on some Salesforce projects. Actually, those older legacy products did that really well. And that's why a lot of bigger fashion brands, for example, are still on the old demandware. We're being inspired by some of that ability to merchandise your store properly internationally. So 2 things, I think: AI, major one, everyone's going in that direction. But sometimes that internationalization stuff has been around for a while, but needs to be moved into more modern SaaS products.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because I did a podcast recently about AI, and AI is moving in different directions in terms of which part of the business it's impacting, and also it's obviously fundamentally impacting developers. Where do you see AI in code generation at a platform level? Because there seems to be a lot of movement in vendors generally around trying to bake more self-serve capability into the tooling.
My first job was actually writing automated test scripts in the robot framework, going through old Hybris websites actually, and go through all different parts of the journey. Basically seeing where things would break on past platforms or really old legacy platforms. And what's cool about that is when you write those really detailed scripts, I think you see where you can get sloppy code or things that basically can easily be deployed to production, but are basically human error. So from a back-end perspective, or to make it easier for developers to deploy production-ready code, I think AI is going to move more in that area. Are you using good quality coding practices? Have you read all of the documentation on the website properly, just to help debug things and deploy things faster? Not necessarily full end-to-end code generation, although I did say a second ago, like we've done some stuff in that area, but actually assisting developers in creating more advanced user experiences is probably step one, because at least my view, and probably Shopline's view as well, is there are quite a lot of standard websites out there, right? And so I think we can use AI to deploy better user experiences with more personalization, more features. But I think you can only really do that now with either a massive dev team in-house or with a really great agency, massive budget, or with the use of AI. And so that's the kind of requests we're getting from our customers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of a go-to-market, and it'd be useful because you can talk about a couple of the big wins that you've had recently. But where are you focused? Like, has there been a fundamental shift? I know that there's always a big challenge around whether you go enterprise, hybrid market, full SME, etc. So, what verticals, what business types are the kind of critical focus area for you guys at the moment?
It's been a moving target a little bit. I think when we opened in the market, we launched some really amazing sort of lower enterprise or mid-market level customers in lots of different verticals. In the region, we've got probably a case study now from a replatform for most of the bigger SaaS-based players in the market in lots of different verticals: furniture, fashion, apparel, health and beauty. I think what we noticed is actually in terms of size of merchant, all sizes of merchants basically want what one of Shopline's biggest selling points is, which is to consolidate their tech stack, not to have death by apps. If you demo to a prospect what they don't mind a few times talking about best of breed technologies and composability. Everyone knows that there's no one tool that does everything. But the biggest trend I think we're getting is good apps, but not millions of apps. And that's the vertical agnostic trend, I guess, that we're really, really seeing everyone asking for. You shouldn't need an app, for example, to upload metadata or custom fields. But yes, that's not necessarily about the size of the merchant, but so that hasn't really changed so much, although Shopline can deal with merchants who are self-service, starting up your whole new business, up until reasonable size lower enterprise brands. We've just launched 2 major household names in the UK in the home and garden space. So later in July, we'll release some pretty great quality content from that case study. And we won a large electronics brand as well earlier on in the year. But I guess our focus are merchants who want to go international, who want to have a consolidated tech stack that works properly. In the end, merchants just want tech that works really well and enables them to trade online in fashion and apparel, home and garden, and health and beauty. That's where most of our cases are.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's always difficult to know where to focus because there's such a large addressable market, but that's useful to hear. And let's go into the product level. So you've got a good few wins, and there'll be particular areas of the product that have swayed them to come to you. You've talked about the building the native capability rather than having to have third-party apps to do some of the, I guess, core functionality that people want out of an e-com engine. So where's the product roadmap been headed in 2025? And are there any big areas that are coming in the next half of the year?
Yeah. On top of that proprietary AI, which hits absolutely every part of our platform, the biggest thing we've released so far is our 3.0 versions of Shopline themes. They're basically built on an enhanced JavaScript framework that basically help improve performance a lot. We're expecting a first contentful paint of way less than a second on desktop for speed. But the biggest thing about that is we're focusing all of our efforts on operational excellence for brands. We want to be the platform that is the easiest to use with the smallest team, because we know that merchants of all sizes are under big financial pressures in a very tough, mature market, right? So we want to be the platform that people enjoy playing with every day. And so I guess the biggest area where people are spending a lot of time on our competitor platforms and wasting a lot of resources is merchandising their site, creating the content. And so the new version of our themes, on top of performance improvements, have basically the concept of inheritance, content slots, content assets. So you can create fully localized stores for every market, completely different content, completely different catalogs, completely different campaigns, but not copying and pasting and doing everything 17, 20, 50 times, right? So that's the biggest area of improvement. It's already live on quite a few of our bigger enterprise brand websites. But there's a long way to go on that. That's basically where a lot of our efforts going to make it easier to internationalize.
Okay, interesting. And where do you see the product going then? You talked about making it easier to do like merchandising and content. How focused are you on like that self-serve? Because we talked about AI, and AI is coming increasingly into things like content generation, content management. How critical a part of that is current or future strategy, or is it other areas where merchants are demanding the most?
That's the biggest area of request we get, to be honest, all the time. Because of that financial pressure on a lot of merchants, they basically don't have big e-commerce teams anymore. So the biggest area of focus is to reduce the manual effort for merchandising and store running campaigns. Can I preview my whole store in advance of Black Friday, a month before Black Friday? So that someone who's a brand director can go to the jeans page, for example, and say, why is that one first on the grid, for example? They want to be able to preview everything in advance, schedule it, put it live at a certain time on Black Friday morning, Cyber Monday afternoon, whatever it might be. And especially in the fast fashion space, that's the major area of request we get. And that's heavily being developed now for a launch later on in the year. Some of it's already live, but I think the panacea will be to get to full automation for campaigns, which I think we're going to definitely deliver very soon. And I think that'll be great for brands because, like I say, there's nothing worse than making somebody get up at 3:00 in the morning to do something. And unless you're a highly content-driven website, maybe you don't need a CMS. You just want to change some of the homepage banners,
It's an area that native page builders have been historically weak on, is that whole campaign scheduling piece, and it's an area that causes like so much manual headache. Or you create workarounds in like being able to do like a custom bit of a custom front end for the client who can then push something in so that it can trigger things in GitHub repository, and you just think actually anything where natively you can give people that control over, especially local market. That's really interesting.
I used to work for a Spanish company, and they wanted to have a totally different merchandise store for Catalonia compared to the rest of Spain, with different promotions, different timings, different banners, everything different. And that is pretty difficult to do on most e-commerce platforms.
Yeah. And if anyone listening wants to find more about specific areas of the product you've talked about, how do they reach out and connect?
You can go to the website. You can fill out the demo request form. We'll jump on, someone from the team in London or the rest of the world. Basically, we'll jump on the phone, happily talk you through it, or reach out to me directly.
Cool. Excellent, David. Thanks as always for coming on. Really enjoy hearing it, what you're up to at Shopline.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, James.
Excellent. Now let's turn our gaze to BigCommerce, and a warm welcome to Andrew Norman, GM for EMEA. Hey, Andrew, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. I really appreciate you joining us. Did you say, was it this month 4 now?
It is end of month 4. That's correct. Yeah, I joined February the 10th. So yeah, I'm 4 months in.
And excellent, because this is your first time on the pod, because previously we had like Mark Adams on and Jim Herbert. Yeah. I think it'd be really useful quickly before we get the questions about BigCommerce is a quick snapshot of your background, because it's deeply relevant to what we're talking about from a strategic platform point of view.
Yeah, so I've been in the e-commerce space for about 15 years, since 2010, 2011. So worked sort of more originally on the MarTech side, sort of the ERP and PIM part of the industry, helping brands and retailers sell across multiple channels and multiple markets. And then as part of that expansion plan, I helped set up that business in the US, and then worked very closely with ShipStation and then helped ShipStation set up their shipping and order management platform in different countries around Europe and Asia, and also MetaPack, which was an acquisition that we made So I've kind of, I guess the point is I've sort of worked on the front of the business, as it were, in terms of how do you be in as many relevant channels as you can, let's say. And then on the other part of it, the less cool part of e-commerce, but equally critical, how do you actually get the order to the consumer, which I guess philosophically, you could say you spend all this money acquiring a customer, right? And sometimes you don't do a great job of actually delivering on the promise. So I certainly don't have all the answers, but I've seen, the investment on acquiring customers and also how to make sure that you can actually get the order to the consumer after the fact. So maybe give some interesting perspective, let's say, I hope.
Yeah, and I think that's really useful context for our listeners, because everyone knows at the front end of the website is just one small, it's like the tip of the iceberg. And if the iceberg underneath is not right. So let's bring the lens back onto BigCommerce. And we last spoke to the BC team at the start of the year. So I'd love to hear, like, the global e-commerce market, I think we all know, has been a bit chaotic the last couple of years. Things move really fast in tech. Also, there's like macro disruptions. We'd love to know, like, what trends are you and the leadership team BC seeing that you're actively impacting your strategy?
Sorry about that noise. I think it's kind of, I would say, some of them are kind of persistent in the sense that in some of our segments, if that's the right word, particularly B2C, I think the idea of wanting to be in as many relevant channels as possible still exists. Let me go back a step. The customer behavior is continually evolving. I'm sure you've talked about that on a number of different podcasts. We see more and more shifting and moving kind of customer buying behavior. And I think that presents challenges, particularly for brands and retailers, but then we'll come on to the B2B side. So we see people wanting to sell on more and more channels. And as you know, and as the listeners will know, that sort of ambition is great. But that ability to execute that is much harder, right? Because sometimes your data is not set up in the right way, or you're just not set up to be able to do that. So one trend we see is the proliferation of channels, which is more about how people want to buy, I think is the point. The proliferation of channels is more the brand and retailer view on the world. But as consumers, when you and I take our professional hat off and buy as a consumer, our buying behaviors are continuing to shift and evolve. So I think that's number one. Certainly on the B2C side, we've seen a lot of maturing on the B2B part of the market. It's a little bit more nascent. I think when we talk to our sort of manufacturers and distributors, there are different levels of maturity, if that makes sense, in terms of where they are on their sort of journey from adoption of technology and digital maturity, as we refer to it. So long answer to your question, we definitely have things we're seeing on the B2C side. B2B, we see a lot of maturing of that adoption. And I don't want to kind of quote the obvious thing around AI, but, agentic commerce in North America particularly, we're seeing that quite, I wouldn't say heavily adopted, but there's a lot of acceleration there. We're starting to see, actual tangible transaction volume starting to accelerate in North America. And we get a lot more questions, like, proper drill down questions on how do we get our data ready? How do we get ourselves ready for agentic commerce in EMEA? So that's not to say that people aren't doing it in EMEA, by the way, but we definitely have a lot more kind of more deeper questions from North American customers. They seem to have adopted it more quickly and more aggressively, I think is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
really, really interesting. And I guess in terms of agentic, is there specific behaviors that you're seeing the fastest growth in, like any specific like tech, or is it like B2B centric, or is it across the board?
Yeah, good question. I think what I've seen myself is more B2C right now, because I think B2B, again, we see almost like what I would refer to as first and second generation purchase on B2B, meaning they're moving from manual to sort of level of automation or tech. So most of the agentic that I've seen and questions from our customers in EMEA is mostly on B2C. Again, the pain point, similar to the previous question you asked, is you could say at the end of the day, it's another channel, right? Without oversimplifying it. And there's a lot of pain about how do we get found in agentic search to simplify the language, and how do we get our data ready, and how do we get our processes ready to be able to take advantage of that opportunity.
Interesting. And this kind of blends into the next question quite well, which is like go-to-market focus, because BigCommerce historically has been able to service really small businesses through to much larger and those approaching into enterprise. Right. And I know at the last summit, there was a lot of talk about vertical specific solutions, which all on this podcast have talked about a lot about. This is a real opportunity in the vendor space. Where is that evolving? Are there very specific verticals you're going for? Where's the split between B2C, B2B, or enterprise versus mid-market?
Yeah, good question. Shame we kind of don't have a whiteboard. I could probably do this better with a matrix. But, I think there's obviously the sort of easy answer, the short answer to your question is also on the geography part of it, right? There are some countries, historically, we've been very invested in UK, Italy, and Spain, where we have teams on the ground and that's, that's sort of public domain and quite, I guess, hopefully well understood in the market. We definitely see there are some geographical markets where we feel we're underinvested relative to the opportunities. So, Benelux, we see a lot of really interesting B2B opportunities from our partners in Benelux, particularly the Netherlands. Germany is, as any of the listeners would know, there's a very, very strong B2B because of the nature of the economy in Germany. So where I would say organically finding B2B opportunities in Germany, which we want to invest more in. And also the Nordics, which again, for anyone in tech would not be surprised, right? Their adoption of technology is normally very early and very strong, and their tolerance of risk is normally quite high. So geographically, there are markets we will and plan to invest more in. Some of that will be partner-led and some of that might be biased, actually putting more resources into that. And then the other part to your question in terms of verticals, I think, again, without oversimplifying it, when you're looking at the markets, you're really trying to look at a few different factors. How big is the market opportunity in terms of, the TAM or how we want to measure? What's the size of the opportunity? Is that market well served? Do we have good product market fit? And we definitely, in some of those vertical categories, we think the answer is yes. It's a good market, it's underserved or poorly served, and we have good product market fit. So what that means specifically is in B2B, there are some categories, builders, merchants, home and garden, car parts or parts and accessories is often referred to. Those are three that we're currently investing in. Again, we have a good proof points or good sort of reference points. We have some interesting stories which I think really resonate with people in those segments. So we're investing heavily in that. And then one that is newer is which I think we launched when Mark was actually in the business, which is big travel again. So not really targeting sort of airlines and the sort of Amadeus and that those platforms that airlines run on, but more everything else around the travel segment, which we think again is sort of ripe for disruption and something that we want to make some investments in. So, long answer to your question, the trick is I think we're trying to clearly invest in all categories to some degree, but there are some categories or some segments where we think it makes sense for us to invest heavier in those.
Yeah, it's one thing that actually historically I've always been frustrated in the vendor ecosystem, generally talking about B2B, is we do B2B. And it's really nice to hear it articulated about, well, actually, it's car parts, it's home garden, it's building merchants, because the nuances in B2B, I don't get to tell you about it, but they are significant from vertical to vertical in terms of like tech stack integrations, processes. So it's really, really interesting to hear that. I know.
Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, no, what you said is really interesting. I think what we're trying to do is really, I know it's an overused word, ecosystem, but we're really trying to figure out, what are the adjacent platforms and partners that, we need to work well with in each of those. So we're not just showing up as another sort of vendor in that segment. And, we're trying to make sure that we understand the other players and that we have the integrations ready to go so that we can remove the friction before just sort of showing up as a new vendor into that market. So we're being more intentional in the way that we're doing things.
Yeah, and it makes the pitch and the demo process far more efficient, because then you go to use cases and scenarios that are relevant rather than generics. And B2B, especially a lot of B2B decision makers, even though people think B2B is behind B2C in terms of econ, the decision makers are some of the most astute business people you're going to get, and they don't do woolly. So
yeah, you've got to make it easy for them, right? Otherwise, you're inadvertently creating more problems, right? So I think we're trying to be much more informed and, who are the ERPs or the PIMs or the OMSs or, what are the other partners we need and should work with to create a more comprehensive proposition for people in those markets.
Excellent. And then on to our final question for this update, which is around product roadmap. Everyone loves to hear from big tech players like yourselves what you focus on. So love to know, like, what's been the focus for maybe the last 6 months, and what going into the second half of the year? What are the big areas that you're focused on within the product? What can merchants expect? Is this shipping new, or is this improving existing, or both?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a mixture of both, right? To be transparent, right? So I think again on the B2C side, we're definitely working hard to augment what I would say some of the core tenets of our products and our proposition. So, things around multi-language, around payments, around back orders. Again, they're things that we're listening to customers' NPS and things that our merchants are telling us every day. So I think on the B2C side, we want to continue to augment and do the basics well, and continue to invest in that product as well, which is the important thing. We do see on the larger B2C side, and certainly B2B, which we'll come back to, is headless. We have a product, Catalyst, which we promoted very heavily last year in the market, and we probably did some things with Mark and maybe even Jim in the past on those. So we're seeing a lot more adoption now of without using every acronym and buzzword, but composable and headless. But yeah, we're seeing genuine interest and adoption, more importantly, of that. So some of our larger existing customers are migrating from the monolith model, as it were, the classic SaaS product, into a headless using our Catalyst product. So we're definitely seeing that. So Catalyst is a big investment, but just for anyone listening, particularly existing customers, yeah, we're continuing to invest in the classic stencil product, as we call it, and also Catalyst. Coming back to some of your other questions, B2B, we have a pretty loaded roadmap, which we also plan to publish in the next couple of weeks. So whenever, 2 weeks from the date of this recording. So we will be able to share more on the B2B side. But yeah, B2B is a large investment for us, as you'd imagine. Probably what you'll see the most of when we announced something yesterday around Feedonomics, which is another company that we acquired 3 years ago, which I think sometimes people forget is actually part of BigCommerce. So we're working hard to harmonize the Feedonomics business into the BigCommerce business. So we're now, those teams are unified and we're doing more and more. So we're now investing heavily on the AI roadmap for Feedonomics, because we think as a standalone product, but also as part of the BigCommerce, portfolio, without oversimplifying it, the platform piece is so critical, but ultimately being able to drive demand across multiple channels and service demand where it exists. Feedonomics is a real superpower for our brands and retailers and manufacturers and distributors to be able to do that. So you'll see a lot of investment and a lot of announcements around Feedonomics in the coming months.
Fantastic. That's great, because the timings of when this podcast will actually publish is pretty much bang in line with that announcement. So I very much look forward to, in a couple of weeks, diving into the B2B announcements. But Andrew, thanks so much for coming on. Really enjoyed it. I always love hearing the viewpoint at the leadership level of the vendors. So, what's the best way if someone wants to reach out, is you pique their interest on any specific area? What's the best way for them to get in touch with BigCommerce to find out more, or even talk about demos?
Yeah, they can reach out to me. I mean, I'd love to talk to people. So again, I'm 4 months in, so I'm 100% in listener mode. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Andrew Norman, or andrew.norman@bigcommerce.com. That would be a great way if I can talk to people directly. I'm trying to spend half my time talking to customers and partners, because I want to listen to what people are saying. So if you want to reach out to me directly, I'd love to talk to you.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Hope everyone listening has enjoyed it. Until next time.
Thanks so much, James. Appreciate it.
And now let's turn our attention to our podcast sponsors, Shopify, who have been very, very busy for a very long time. And a warm welcome to Benjamin Lang, who's the head of EMEA Partner Expansion. Hey, how are you doing, Ben?
Hey, James. Really glad to be here. Thanks for welcoming me.
Yeah, and look, thanks, because I've met and talked to you over the years about many things related to Shopify and e-commerce. Previously, you had Emily doing this episode with us. So for those of our listeners who might not have connected with you before. Do you want to give them a little bit of flavor of who you are and what your role is?
Yeah, indeed. So my role is I'm in charge of the team that is looking after expanding our ecosystem of partners, right? Shopify is mainly focusing in terms of go-to-market around partners, and we have a great ecosystem, and we're expanding that ecosystem. So my team does look after that. So I'm closely working with Emily, as is also in charge of the partnership ecosystem in EMEA.
Wonderful. And just a few partners in EMEA.
Yeah.
So look, thanks for coming on. We'll start with a strategic lens because we always like to hear from each of the vendors, like what they're seeing in the market and how that's influencing their strategy. So we know the e-com market is at a place of rapid change and in constant challenge because of macro issues happening around the world. So I'd love to know your lens on it. Like, what are the trends that you are seeing that are actively shaping the strategy that you're working?
Yeah, I think we're seeing like mainly three big trends currently happening, right? You've been hearing us talking about unified commerce for quite some time there, and I think it's definitely something that's happening even more right now. So we know that the future is online, offline, and everything in between, right? What we need is the merchants that need to meet their clients wherever they are. And what we've realized that omnichannel in the past was different systems connected to each other with the problems of being connected to each other somehow, right? Unified commerce is pushing that a layer deeper with a system centralizing data sets. Centralizing data is quite important right now in the age of AI, right? So a system centralizing data sets for better operational cost and efficiencies, but also better customer insights across the different channels you have. So we are seeing that also as a key to bring innovation. So this is definitely something that's happening more and more, right? We are seeing platforms that are hard to interconnect, and that's definitely for us a tailwind. We're indeed seeing AI, right? I'm guessing everyone will talk about AI, but it's definitely a trend there. That's not only touching those like big enterprise clients are thinking about it, it's touching everyone, right? And we're like pushing really hard to make sure that we are democratizing that technology to through our system. But AI is definitely an element that is coming more and more. And we had generative AI, we had like a conversational AI, and we have declarative commerce that is coming more and more, right? So, and that's interesting trends to see. So now it's more about enabling merchants to express what they need. So it's more conversational somehow, rather than just leveraging it to create an image or a video, whatever, So it's that, but it's more now, and it's quite interesting to see how that tool is now going a layer deeper more and more, right? So what we were a year ago, where we were a year ago, and where we are now on AI has nothing to do. And I'm happy to see that Shopify is pushing the boundaries also on that. The third one is enterprise commerce is changing. Feels a bit weird to say because usually we're seeing enterprise commerce as being potentially slower moving, right? More impacted by silos, bigger tech stack, more complex setup. And we are seeing the macroeconomics impacting the behavior of those enterprises that are now focusing on being more agile because they need to if they want to survive as well. So there is a real big shift toward better, more agile, more fluid, more time to market as well, to ensure that those big enterprises are also thriving. So definitely something that we're noting like trending up.
Interesting. Actually, the piece around enterprise has come up in a few discussions recently about what enterprise businesses need, helping them unpick complexity and helping them move from I guess that traditional slow release cycle into a more rapid way of deployment that like smaller D2Cs are used to working.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the time to market element and the total cost of ownership also is something that is important in the current macroeconomic. But time to market is so important, being able to test and learn, and not just, sit and relax. I think the times of sitting and relaxing has long time gone. So it's more about, time to market is key there.
Yeah. Now let's look at the go-to-market focus, because I think it can be quite difficult sometimes for people who don't know Shopify well looking in of where is the focus, because you are everywhere.
Yeah.
And you have lots of different businesses, but I'd love to hear not every single one, but what are the core verticals, business types or that you're focusing on now? Is enterprise becoming the dominant player?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's so fun to hear you say that, right? Because indeed, a few years back, hearing Shopify is everywhere was not something that was evident to hear, right? So indeed, our go-to-market has been about stretching up market, making sure that we have a fit for a technical fit for merchants that are larger, right? And actually, the fun part is that those merchants are coming to us because of the technology we are providing rather than us actively going to them. So we are also an organic traction that is fairly interesting. If we are looking at the few last months, our go-to-market has been super strong still on core verticals. So beauty and apparels, health and beauty, and apparels and fashion has been strong for us, right? Especially through the lens of the new features that we've been launching. You've heard about editions, indeed. We are going to maybe talk about that a bit later, but a lot of the things that we've been pushing are also super great fit for those verticals where we had amazing traction, but not just on a D2C only perspective, right? But also on the retail perspective, brands like Oliver Brown also launching on their stores. So definitely a traction that is not just on the e-com side, but across the different channels they have. So definitely something we see: enterprise, fashion, health, and beauty. Definitely something that we had amazing success. One thing that I worth noting as well is the B2B traction. B2B is still a massive opportunity in the e-commerce landscape, but not just in the e-commerce landscape. And we are seeing that specific segment tracking really well right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'd love to hear a bit more about any particular areas, because B2B is huge.
Yeah.
You've got such diversity from maybe distributors, manufacturers wanting to sell direct, or even manufacturers wanting to sell online through distributors. Then you've got the far complex end of manufacturing and really complex plant machinery and stuff. So which area, are there specific types of B2B business that you're most focused on?
Yeah, I think indeed, when you're looking at B2B, it's as large as saying D2C, right? So it's definitely, or even larger to a certain extent, especially in terms of complexity. I don't think right now we're resonating as well when it comes to super, super complex architecture with, a huge amount of SKUs across different channels and all that. So indeed, when the level of complexity is really high, I think Shopify is not yet resonating as well in that layer, even though we have strong capacities. If we are zooming back, what we've been seeing is that the D2C brands that added a B2B layer, we were super strong in there. What we're seeing right now is B2B standalone that are straightforward, definitely resonate super well right now. So we are making our steps there, going deeper in the B2B world by first tackling the less complex setup that has been historically D2C toward B2B. Now B2B only, we're getting a lot of traction on the less complex setup, and we are going deeper and deeper in complexity. So, and there is always a delay between your product readiness and how it resonates in the marketplace. So I think in terms of product, we're ready to tackle really highly complex setup. In terms of how we're perceived in the marketplace, it has a bit of delay. So now, we're working hard to bridge that gap.
Yeah. And B2B is a very complex one for a vendor to nail down because product fit across every single potential business type vertical is impossible. There's always going to be space for multiple vendors with different solutions there.
For sure, I think it's but if you're looking at product market fit in a day, what you tend to do, especially in the B2B world, as vendors are not evolving that fast, is looking at it from a picture standpoint, whereas actually Shopify is strong on the movie standpoint, right? If that makes sense, it's like where we were 2 years ago in the B2B world has nothing to do with where we are right now, and has nothing to do on where we are going to be in 2 years' time. So I think the trends are definitely super interesting for brands, especially when the sales cycles are longer in the B2B world. So if you're planning to change your tech stack right now and your horizon is 2 years' time, high chance that Shopify will be even stronger than what we are right now. Or it's not high chances, it's a certainty.
And this kind of dovetails nicely into about the product roadmap. We know that Editions was launched recently. A lot of interesting new stuff, specifically around like the Horizons theming and the improvements to the content management and the AI block generation, which has got a lot of buzz around it.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear in terms of where is the focus going forward now? Like, what are the key areas where Shopify is going to focus and drill into in the next half of the year? Like, what can merchants look forward to?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think you did an amazing episode lately with Ben from our team on the Editions and unpacking that from a technical standpoint. So if people want to give it a listen, I think it's definitely worth it. I think the design flexibility is something that we are bringing more and more, that's new Horizon teams is bringing more new store design foundation somehow to bring more flexibility there. So that's something that Shopify is doubling down on. Horizon has been an important step toward that. Indeed, one of the key elements as well, and we talked about it earlier a bit, is AI, right? So our sidekick capacities has been increasing like crazy. I don't know if you had the opportunity to play with it yourself, James. I think you had. It's just crazy, their capacity to really make sure that we have, connect different dots, right? Making sure that, that AI is not only, answering questions, but also proactively problem solving, right? Actually, be careful, something will happen if you're not changing this or that. Really having, someone that's supporting you there. I think Shopify has been investing a lot in that. And the fact that we have now multi-source analysis in our AI really does help to bring solutions that are going to bring more impact. I think the fact that it's now also available in different languages, it's leveling the playing field there, especially in EMEA, is super important to have such a tool that is available in different languages. So I think AI is definitely also an important layer we're pushing into. So we say first, design flexibility, second AI, POS. You saw the redesign of our POS app. I think also a great step. We're ramping up our capacity on the POS world like crazy right now. And, that new design, such a great step as well. And also for me, the fourth and potentially one of the most important is making sure that our global management is simplified. The multi-entity, multi-currency, everything related to Shopify payments also has been super important in EMEA, especially, right? So the fact that we've ramped up our capacity in there and that we're having a strong roadmap on solving some of the most frequent issues of our clients is definitely something that is exciting. So I would say those are the four main areas I'm seeing there.
Yeah, the POS bit I think is really interesting. There's a few people have talked about that actually, and somebody shared a really good post on LinkedIn yesterday about a retailer where the before and then the implementation afterwards, and about the simplification of the in-store POS space for the in-store staff and like more streamlined desk and less clutter and less hardware.
Yeah. And I think also that what is important with the POS is an additional channel to capture customer data and centralize that in the unified commerce manner, right? So having the right interface in the shop is super important for to that extent. But it's also really important, so it helps you to connect the dots on your customer data, centralizing that, and whatever surface you're in, you can really manage that, and you can centralize everything. So I think POS is also a key element for that.
Yeah, indeed. It's really interesting to see that play out, because there's a few brands I'm talking to where go back a few years, I don't think the POS would have fitted all the runs, but actually the acceleration in capability and the customization capability of the front end screens for the store staff has made people, I think, change their perspectives, purposes, and what use cases it starts.
Yeah, I think the POS world is part where you need to have some custom apps specifically there, right? And our POS system is really highly customizable. So you can really go deep into making sure that it's fitting your merchant needs. and your clients as well. So yeah, definitely something that has evolved, and that new design that we've launched during the last edition, Summer Edition 25, definitely is a great step.
Excellent. Thanks very much for coming on, taking the time. I know at the end of the day, we could, as I said, with all of the other people who've come on, we could spend hours talking about product capability. That's what the deep types for. But some of the things you said might have got people's interest. People might want to reach out and maybe ask more questions. I think especially around the B2B and it's accelerating. How do they reach out? Who should they reach out to?
Well, they can reach out to me through LinkedIn or by email, benjamin.lang@shopify.com. So always happy to answer and help route any demands there. We're and always good to chat with you, James. Thanks for having us.
Amazing. Thanks so much. I look forward to doing it again in the future.
Yeah, thanks, James.
Excellent. So now let's have a look at Remarkable Commerce. And I'm really happy to welcome back Brad Holdsworth, who's the strategy director. Hey, Brad, good to have you back on.
Hey, James. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Always enjoy listening to what you guys are up to. Always seems that you're very busy on the product and incremental functionality. So looking forward to seeing that. But before we get into, I guess, the product piece, the question that we want to get into the start on this update is around that the current global e-commerce market is moving fast. There's all sorts of noise. There's all sorts of trends. There's lots of dynamics impacting how people are shopping and therefore what merchants are demanding. So love to hear from your side. What are the trends that you are most aware of that are actively shaping your strategy?
Cool. So I think on a sort of macro lens, there's a few that come to mind. So marketplaces as the model is becoming increasingly popular, both in terms of retailers wanting to sell on a marketplace and vice versa, perhaps look at being a marketplace themselves and introducing additional brands onto their site. Not just the model, but I think the whole concept of sort of being a bit more multi-brand. So that's definitely a trend I've started to see over the last sort of year or so. We've got a few clients already doing a little bit of it, starting to think about it, coming to us, asking us to for suggestions on what marketplace they should be on, but also the concept of becoming a marketplace. So that's the first one. And the second one is around operational challenge. So it's a bit of a pendulum this between sort of operational and I guess optimization. I see this swing every sort of 6-12 months, but at the moment I see a lot of conversation around operational challenges. So in particular, warehouse, for example. And we've seen a lot of opportunities in that world over the last 6 months. People coming to us saying, not really last mile, but more the sort of in the middle. So, order management really, split dispatch, bundling, for example, and how that's sort of managed, rebundling. So sort of splitting parts out and then rebundling it together in different ways. The operational work that goes into how to coordinate that, and how to get orders out the door and how to manage stock, that's becoming a bit of a headache for some of our clients, but also some prospects coming talking to us saying this world is starting to become hard for us. So yeah, that's definitely a trend. The third one is, and again, we've got a few clients already doing this, but there's a few sort of wanting to know more about it. It's a bit more of an intrigue sort of trend, but it's the sort of insurance world. So especially on product that is a few £100 or more, maybe a few thousand, there's the jewelry, the power tools, the expensive mountain bikes. It's introducing a product insurance piece to their customer, so that the customer can take out an insurance on a product. But I think the trend that I've started to see is brands wanting more branded control over those experiences. So instead of like taking out a holiday insurance, that being separate from your holiday booking, brands actually wanting to take ownership of that proposition. So having their insurance policy documents inside of their account, for example, and it all being branded, and maybe those policies or that insurance piece being inside of the retailer's app, and sort of piece like that. So it's inside of their world rather than being a separate brand, a separate product that people buy. And then on a sort of micro lens, some of these sort of UX things I've started to see, the trends, and there's a few I've started to recognize. So particularly on a storefront, on a PLP, much more content within PLPs compared to 12 months ago. I think retailers have started to really embrace adverts and content slots, and both in dynamic and sort of quite nicely designed content within a PLP, within a category page. That's become a thing. I think people have started to really understand the value. Technology's allowed it to be possible. And I think retailers are starting to, merchandising teams are starting to work with content teams more. I've seen that certainly over the last 12 months. That's a handful of stuff. There's more, but lots of
the insurance one's really interesting because I've not come across that. So I'd love to know what sort of vertical, because I imagine that's geared towards higher products. And so what sort of verticals have you seen this emerge?
Yeah, I mean, we've launched one about 6 months ago, which was for SGS, which is a power tools. So it's your tradesman who has a van full of tools, maybe a one-man band, and he or she will need insurance over those quite valuable, power tools in their van. Often what I've seen is retailers like that have quite loyal customers, especially retailers who have a multi-brand situation. So, SGS sell Milwaukee, they also sell Rika, they also sell other brands. And as a tradesperson, you can go to SGS and buy multiple brands, multiple pieces and product, and take out not just product insurance, but perhaps insurance over the contents of your van, or a wider set of product, not just individual pieces. So, there's lots of use cases there, but I think it is on the higher end of product. But I also think it's starting to become a little bit more of a safety net for certain type of customers. It's always been a thing for when you buy a fridge freezer, or a TV, they always try and bundle a £5 a month of subscription in for insurance. But I think it's starting to become a little more accepted and expected from customers in a certain world.
Interesting. And in terms of like go-to-market focus, where's Remarkable currently sitting? Like, has it changed significantly this year in terms of like verticals, business types? Are there any specific types of business emerging that's core to your strategy?
Yeah, well, I see this in sort of 3 groups or 3 buckets. So our go-to-market for our platform. So the Remarkable platform itself that has been, we've been building that for 25 years. That go-to-market is really aimed at sort of Magento retailers between sort of small to mid-market. So 5 mil up to 100 mil. And if they've been on Magento, then they're used to custom and they're used to bespoke, and they're probably a little bit strange or complex in their architecture, but they're bought into the agility and the flexibility. And the idea of off the shelf is a little bit scary or unknown or has risk. So that go-to-market for our RCM platform is particularly for that type of retailer who has that sort of complicated or complex type of requirement. That hasn't really changed. And if I look at the past several merchants we've brought onto Remarkable platform, 80% of them have been Magento because of that background, because of that requirement there. And the idea of off the shelf is just a little bit of a too far of a stretch. So this is normally a build or buy piece, but the buy piece is certainly not off the shelf. It's normally some level of custom solution. So that's the go-to-market for Remarkable platform. Over the last, you asked about sort of last 12 months, how that's evolved. And I think our module go-to-market has changed. So we've always kind of split out modules from the platform, and some of our merchants only take a few things from us. So we have a few brands, like Shopify brands, who only take search from us, only take promotions as a piece. Because the native capabilities of those modules inside, of Shopify, for example, or BigCommerce or whatever, the native core stuff is just not as advanced as it needs to be. And the challenge of introducing a third party or an app to unlock that capability is cool and pretty cost effective, but it's still rigid. And so when you want agility and flexibility, as well as the sort of additional capability, sometimes the kind of off-the-shelf style apps and plugins just don't offer enough. So we offer that best of both worlds, where it's more advanced capabilities. You know, our merch and search solutions are really strong. Our promotions engine's really good. But the off-the-shelf style of plugins just don't offer the sort of flexibility that a retailer might want. So modules is the second thing that go to market. And the third thing is around services. So what I said in January on that catch-up when we talked about offering services to, you know, dev services to retailers not on our ecosystem, that's primarily Shopify brands. So brands that are, again, in that mid-market between sort of 5 to 50 mil turnover, typically with an incumbent agency or an SI who are starting to face complex challenges, sort of really advanced stuff that their devs might just be sort of slightly out of reach to them. Don't have the skill set essentially to kind of try and resolve those complex configurations. We're sort of often parachuted in. We have been over the past sort of 12 months to various situations where, you know, a piece of middleware is just broken down. And it's like, we need you to come in next week and solve this out within a week. And it's like that type of urgency to it. So that service proposition has started to change. And I think it's not just around storefront UX. It's not just around admin capabilities or middleware. It started to sort of bleed out into the wider technology, even IT sort of ecosystem, where your typical sort of SI or agent or, you know, dev agency just don't have either the manpower or the speed or the advanced sort of background to be able to solve those type of things. So we've kind of got 3 go-to-markets, which is quite hard to think about all the time, but
yeah. It was interesting to see you guys have that split from a component point of view to enable other people to use specific capabilities. I think it's a really smart move as well, strategically, to get people to understand the capabilities of the platform. And are you seeing growth in demand there?
In certain modules, yes. And we're being strategic in terms of which sort of pieces we try and focus on, because we understand that in the market there are, you know, very capable modules and technologies in certain spaces that are just strong, and trying to compete in that world just doesn't make sense. So therefore partnerships are really valuable to us. We have really strong partnerships in the OMS world. We have some really nice PIM partnerships, and customers and CRM we don't really touch at all either. So those kind of pieces are very much partnership led, and we actively do introductions on that world. But where we do compete well, those particular modules, they're normally around specific use cases. So we have lots of conversations where it's like, well, we really like the look of this particular third party that offer this thing that's $5,000 a month, but we don't need all of it. We only need that one thing, and they can't pull it apart. So it's only that one thing. So can we either service that, or can we just build that and then we just license it to them instead of it becoming a SaaS piece? So there's lots of there's no one size fits all conversation. But we're, on a weekly basis having these type of really interesting challenges faced with us. So it's good.
Yeah. Excellent. And final question is roadmap. So I'd love to hear roadmap going ahead into the second half of the year. What are the big items that are coming? What could merchants expect? And is this new features or mainly enhancements?
Bit of both, actually. Yeah. So enhancements is site search. Just going back to that point a minute ago. So overhauling that, we've introduced vector search, and we've introduced some really nice advancements and optimizations within our Elastic world. And that's really starting to compete now, when we're starting to see some of our really decent sized merchants come away from their enterprise grade technology and replace it with core solutions, because that's advanced really well. So that optimization certainly around search, and middleware as well. So again, we've sort of built out this middleware piece that's evolved now. And then in terms of creating new personalization, I think I mentioned that in January. So introducing personalization to the CMS. That started to become, that's new, that started to come into play. So over the next few quarters, we're going to start introducing that in some really interesting worlds. There's some really nice use cases around sort of one-to-one personalization. We've had to reinvent a lot behind the scenes to be able to make that possible. In particular, things like caching and sort of architecture structure of our services. We've started to sort of really think about that deeply on an architecture level. And then on the services side, so the agency services, just continuing to evolve really as a working with brands outside of our ecosystem. Starting to look at partnerships in a different lens as well. So that's, remarkable, I think, as a business might evolve in the coming sort of quarters and years, which will be nice to announce soon. And then obviously just growth as a business. So, we're still aiming for that 100 people in the coming year. And we're getting close, but hopefully by next time we talk, I can say we're finally at 100 people. So fingers crossed.
Big milestone. We'll have to get the champagne out for that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent, Brad. I always enjoy listening to what you're up to. I'm always really impressed with how much you guys are able to get through, the velocity in the roadmap. And glad to hear things are still going well. And if anybody is interested, is piqued and wants to know more, especially around the custom, the modules, and also like that ability to handle like more complex customizations, how do they reach out?
LinkedIn, drop me a note, or my email, brad@remarkable.net. Either's cool.
Magic. All right. Well, thanks as always. And until next time.
That's all. Cheers, James.
And now we turn our gaze to Commerce Layer, and I'm really happy to welcome back Filippo, who is the founder and CEO. Hey, Filippo. Lovely to see you.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me.
It's good. We were just saying it's been a little while since we've chatted on here, so it's really nice to see, and I'm looking forward to hearing what's been happening at Commerce Layer, because I know it's never a quiet time when you're running an e-commerce business.
It's not. I can guarantee.
Yeah. Well, let's start with that strategic lens. So we'd love to hear where you're seeing the market, because the e-commerce market seems to move at faster and faster pace. The world's been obsessed with AI for the last 12 months. But there are other trends like macro trends and country-specific trends that are impacting what merchants want, how tech companies are evolving. So I'd love to know, from your position, what trends are you most focusing on that are shaping your business strategy?
Yeah, I would say two main trends. One is, as I said, I'm not giving you like the most original answer, but AI is really top of mind for me and for Commerce Layer, because we believe that is really changing, is really reshaping the way people shop and will shop in the future. So there are two main parts of that. One is how AI can help companies accelerate and automate the operations more on the backend side, right? So like using AI to fulfill orders, for example, and that part is, I think that's pretty clear that is happening, and it's happening now. And also our customers are experimenting, and we're helping them experimenting with this type of workflows and automations that are AI driven and can use our API to actually, fulfill an order, for example. On the other side, which is even more interesting, I believe, is on the shopping side, on the front end side, on the customer facing side, how AI is changing the way people shop. And one like there is a trend that is already happening of using AI and agents on your website to change the way customers shop from your brand using the website. So instead of browsing and clicking and scrolling a web page, they eventually will talk to an agent that has the capability of interacting with the brand and be your personal concierge, for example. And this is one side. And the other one, which is even more interesting, maybe, is how what if people will start shopping? I mean, people have already started shopping on ChatGPT and these tools, but now the shopping journey is still limited to the discovery phase. So you discover products on ChatGPT and then you are redirected to a website. What if like this journey is embedded more and more in chat, potentially until the complete the purchase that is completed in chat? And we're wondering, of course, like being an API is a big advantage, but it's not enough. Like, how can we support this type of interaction that, again, potentially will happen in the future? So this is having of course, an impact on how we think about the evolution of the company, the platform, and so on. On the other side, I think the tariff war, the commercial war that has been initiated by Trump is really making the let's say the flexibility, the localization of the business even more important. And so also our existing customers, our existing brands, who are almost all global brands selling internationally, but with the tariff, they are looking to, again, segment their business and localize their business even more. So essentially acting as a global brand, but like localizing their business operation across the different countries to reduce the impact on the tariffs. So, which is, again, something that is pushing, let's say, the boundaries of the flexibility that they need and the capabilities that they need to support the internationalization of their business. So these two things, I'd say, are
they're not nicely summarized, because they are two big areas of. The point you made about the AI and changing the shopping behavior is really interesting, because we're seeing, aren't we, an acceleration of the shopping point rather than the traditional. I search for something with this tool. It takes me over here. I then do my refinement. I then might get ad. But actually, everyone wants to move that moment of truth further ahead. Because I read recently that PayPal have now announced a new capability where, especially for like content sites, where you can embed the purchase through a PayPal button within the ad without having to leave to go off somewhere else. So yeah, interesting that you've pulled that out about the change in how people are behaving.
Yeah, and also if you look at MasterCard and Visa, they both announced, I believe, like MasterCard Agent Pay and Visa Intelligent Commerce, like the big payment networks that are rethinking the way the customer will shop, and the shopper maybe is no more the human, is an agent, and so like an agent that has been delegated by a user to shop on their behalf. So this changes a lot, because both were banned from businesses until now. Now both maybe had the chance to become the new normal, and you have to review, the way you treat bots and agents, because they can become your main customer.
Yeah, interesting. And kind of following on nicely from that, is the type of business that you are focused on and where you're going to be increasingly focused. So do you want to talk people through what type of business? Is it specific verticals, size of business, or specific regions in the world? Has that changed much, or is it going to be consistent?
It doesn't change that much, meaning that, as a platform, we are industry agnostic, but given our origins, for those who don't know, I come from the luxury world, like before founding Commerce Layer, and we have had some success with some luxury brands. And so fashion, lifestyle, luxury has become kind of a vertical where we are having more success than other verticals. So not because of the product, not because of the platform itself, but because of, how things go. And maybe we also know how to talk to these businesses. And so yeah, that's one vertical that we at least are proactively working on. And in the meantime, we are getting opportunities from different industries as well.
And in terms of region, we are focusing more and more in Europe, because, it's for two things. One is we are a European company, and one of our main capabilities are in the internationalization, as I was saying. And so, like, having the Europe is much more complex than the US, for example, in terms of the internationalization for businesses. And so, it's a market where we are having maybe brands like are having more, value, or getting more value from our capabilities. In terms of the company size and brand sizes, we have always been enterprise. We are going more and more enterprise. We are, getting into bigger and bigger opportunities compared to like smaller brands who are like, this is also related to how composable commerce, headless commerce is perceived in the market. There has been a big, a few years ago, like, everyone wanted to go headless because of all the, the benefits and the capabilities of a headless approach. Then over time, things have been, not changed, but I would say that the smaller brands have reconsidered also, some monolithic solutions that are maybe, easier for them to manage without a development team and so on. So as a result, our proposition, which is truly composable, we are a piece of the puzzle. You can't build an experience with Commerce Layer alone. You have to compose Commerce Layer with other solutions. There is no other way. So this means that we are getting more and more appealing by, for the biggest brands who have always been and always will be composable. Like, they will always create stocks instead of, not always, but in many situations, they need flexibility, and they need different tools for different parts of to manage different parts of their business.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, actually, when you start to talk about where that composability fits really well, because often enterprise, for me, is always defined by complexity of business model and operations, because that's when the flexibility is critical. You can have like multi-$100 million turnover businesses that are just very simple tech stack, and often they're hype-driven businesses off of social media for like large product drops. But actually, they're pretty straightforward in terms of the tech. So yeah, it's interesting where I think there was a hype cycle for composable, and now people are really starting to understand better where it fits nicely. And I think clients are getting a little bit smarter about understanding the benefits of it as well.
No, I think that's a great point. Everyone has their own definition of what enterprise is, but I think your definition makes a lot of sense. We do have brands who are not huge in terms of volume, but they have a pretty sophisticated business model that need a sophisticated solution. On the other side, there are some enterprise brands who have a very simple, maybe not in our case, like, very simple business models, but a single market, and they are, and so it's not the GMV that makes an enterprise brand versus a small, medium business brand. Yeah, like the business size, of course, is part of the definition, but the complexity, I think it's especially when you think of the technological component of it, it's really a better definition for what enterprise is and what.
I reckon we could do a whole separate podcast on the definitions of enterprise and which one's right, which one's wrong. But I've got a final question, which is around product strategy, product roadmap, and what Commerce Layer has been shipping. We last sat down, we had a chat with Seth, and it was around end of January time. So I'd love to know, what are the key things that have come out since then, and what are you working on at the moment that you're excited about that's going to really help merchants?
Yeah. So the first one is our promotion engine. Last year, we released a quite sophisticated rules engine that has been applied to our promotion engine. So now you can really manage and offer very, very flexible
promotions with Commerce Layer. And as an API first company, we have started from the API, from the engine itself, and we have put this engine in the hands of our brands and the developers so that they could build promotions using the engine, but without a UI, essentially, So it was and it is very powerful, but not that usable by non-developers. What we are releasing soon is a pretty interesting interface to our promotion engine that is completing, let's say, the promotion product that we are offering. And this UI is, gives this flexibility and puts this flexibility in the hands of non-developers to manage all these promotions. We are also experimenting with AI in the promotion engine because promotions are always complex also to define. So like using AI to define these promotions is something that we are experimenting. The second thing that comes to mind is more architectural. We are releasing an event-based architecture that essentially enhances the scalability of our platform. We have always had a webhook-based mechanism where you can subscribe to some webhooks and some, let's say, events in the platform. Orders being created, shipment has been delivered, and so on. And then like creating endpoints. But this works, and this is used by all our customers. But now with the event-based architecture, we are taking it to the next level because you can follow a publish subscribe paradigm where we publish changes to the event queue, and then you can subscribe, which is much more scalable and much more easier to handle also from the client side. And the third one, we are still coming back to the AI strategy. We are releasing our MCP server. We have been a bit late to the party. Everyone has released an MCP server like the day after Anthropic has announced the protocol. But we are almost there. We wanted to do it right. And the first, there are two parts of this. One is using our metrics API, is connected to our metrics API, and so that you can connect your Claude or your ChatGPT to your Commerce Layer and use it as a tool, to query your business in a conversational way, so that you can interact with your business. And the second one, which is again something that is not even let's say achievable completely with the MCP model. So we are thinking of how we could potentially extend it. It's the shopping part. So like how we can enable shopping using AI. Like that's something that we will start from what like the easiest experience that you can build with an agent, that is like to put a personal concierge on your front end that is all handled by the MCP client and MCP server that is provided by Commerce Layer. But again, we are thinking also of different scenarios where shopping doesn't happen on your website, but happens on ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity. And so how can we support this type of shopping, and how can we enable our brands to be part of this evolution or revolution in the way people shop?
Excellent. Thanks. Really interesting. I love hearing where people are focused and why. Thanks for taking the time to come on. It's always enjoyable chatting to you, Filippo.
Yeah. Thank you for having me again. And it's been a pleasure.
And if anyone listening, if it's piqued their interest and they're thinking, I'd really like to find out how the platform is relevant for X or how it will support us to do Y, what's the best way for them to reach out to find more info or even to look at it from a demo point of view?
Yeah, I mean, you can visit our website, commercelayer.io. You can request a demo from the website, like the typical forms that you can fill and reach out. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, I mean, these are like the best ways to reach out to us.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I look forward to doing the next one as well.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so now let's turn our attention to Scayle Commerce Engine, and a warm welcome back to Gurpreet Kaur, who's the Global Head of Product Marketing.
Thanks, James. It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you taking the time. I always enjoy these episodes because it's great to hear what you've been up to. I know there's just been a big product release, so we're going to come to that in a bit. But before we do, we wanted to take a bit of a kind of a strategic lens with the vendors this time about the current global e-commerce market. We all know it moves so fast. There's trends left, right, and center. There's all these macro dynamics impacting it. We'd love to hear like what you're seeing in the market and which are the trends that are actively like shaping your strategy.
Yeah, sure. So, customer experience has sort of been that new infrastructure for quite some time. We saw it, well, it's always been spoken about. But at Scayle, what we're seeing is three key macro trends that are driving our roadmap and our innovations. Firstly, it's around a modular enterprise commerce or modular enterprise commerce in general. So businesses, they no longer want, all these rigid all-in-one suites, but they also don't want to or can't afford these fragmented setups that microservices bring. So our strategy has always been to provide the best of both worlds, modular, pre-compose, and composable capabilities that have native cohesion across all of the stack. So you have things like product and pricing and content and checkout and subscriptions and marketplaces, and it's all accessible from one place. So we hear that, people or businesses, in terms of customer experience, the experience of our customers needs to be better in terms of they want this like unified user experience. And that's what we provide. And that's what we see as a trend in the market. The next piece is around retail grade performance at a global scale. So, we are a company born out of Hamburg, so we really do understand Europe, whereas a lot of e-com companies, when they're US-centric, or e-commerce technology companies, US-centric, the global effort or the global understanding is not always there. So what we know is that global commerce is local by default, that enterprise players are scaling across different regions and brands and business models, and this is really important to a lot of our customers, especially ones who operate in Europe. And our platform's built to mirror that complexity without slowing teams down through centralized control and localized execution. So that's another thing that's really important to us and drives our roadmap. And then the final piece is around front-end freedom and back-end stability. So whether it's accelerating storefront refreshes, or whether you're enabling headless architectures or supporting multiple touch points, we're investing in really making our storefront and checkout layers more flexible, faster, and developer-friendly.
Excellent. Yeah, and the global picture has been so complicated in the last 12 months, hasn't it? With certain people's constant decision changes impacting how people trade and the cost and process for trading around the world.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think it's changed, even Brexit changed things so much as well. So I think there's just constant change, but having the capabilities to be able to go international and to go global or launch new brands in new markets, I think that's also super important to enterprise businesses.
Yeah, are there any new regions that you've been focused on regionally? Because when I speak to so many different businesses, and a lot are focused on EU and US or North America, but increasingly I'm seeing in certain verticals a sharper focus on like the Middle East and Asian markets. Yeah. Are you seeing like an increased demand, or is this a consistent demand?
I think it's consistent demand. We're really focused on the UK and US. And we're seeing a little bit in places like Australia. So yeah, that we're sort of branching out, but you've got to remember we're quite new compared to the likes of Salesforce or Shopify, who already have that global brand awareness. And so yeah, we're building out in the core markets, and that's where our focus is at the moment.
Okay, great. And let's talk about like the go-to-market focus, because I find this a really interesting question, because business models change, the type of verticals you focus in or the business types always evolves over time. Where are you now focused? What type of business? What size of business? And I know size is often talked about in revenue, but typically in tech, it's more about complexity. So I'd love to hear about like the sweet spots for you that you're working with and going after.
Give us the most complex retailers, I'd say. Yeah. So we're laser focused on enterprise retail and brands, especially those that are navigating multi-brand complexity, which I'll talk about a bit later as well. So big fashion houses, global franchises, also ones in wanting omni-channel transformation. So retailers, outlets, apps, marketplaces, all of the things. And then international expansion or replatforming with legacy suites. So these are sort of our key areas, and our strongest traction today is in fashion. It's part of our DNA. It's, we were born, for those who are listening that don't know about Scayle, we were born from About You, which is one of Europe's largest fashion retailers. But we also cover other areas like beauty, lifestyle, luxury brands, home and living, and we recently signed a grocery customer as well. So we're expanding rapidly into other verticals as well. And, this is where complexity meets storytelling and customer experience. That's sort of our sweet spot.
Online grocery is interesting because historically, most of the big online grocers have like complex, custom built, like Frankensteins.
Yeah.
So that's it. Is online grocery a deliberate play? Is that a market that you've identified, or was this just happen? You've won an online grocer, and actually now this could be a vertical for you to target.
I think it's not been one that we've actively been targeting through our marketing, but it's certainly something that we've won, and we're going to be working really hard to look at all the features and capabilities that are required to make that a success, and helping our customers build that out. And then hopefully we can replicate, that for other grocers as well.
Yeah, the supply chain side of online grocery is fascinatingly complex. So that sounds like a conversation for another day. Yeah. So let's get on to the meat and drink part of the update, which is around product strategy, product roadmap, and releases. And I know that you've just had a big enterprise evolution release, which I know it was a particularly large piece of work for you all to get over the line. So the people listening would love to hear, like, what are the key things that have dropped, and what is the relevance and benefit to merchants?
Yeah, so Enterprise Evolutions wasn't just like a feature drop for us. It was quite a fundamental upgrade to how we see enterprise businesses will be building, operating, and scaling with Scayle. We launched over 60 features, so 60 new features. We had 8 hero features that we focused on to package multiple enhancements underneath, which were then bundled into 4 key investment areas for our customers, which were engage, convert, optimize, and extend. So if I start with engage, this is all about how we would help businesses, enterprise businesses, engage with customers from the very first moment that they land on your site, and how we enable businesses to scale those experiences globally. So on that page, and this is all bundled up in a content hub that you can find online, one of the most foundational investments in this release was our major storefront application overhaul. So customers can always choose to go headless and use their own storefront, or they can use our storefront application, which includes pre-built, performance-ready components that are things like homepage, checkout, essentially a solid foundation of pre-composed components that you can use from straight out of the box. We also then went further and introduced and redid all of the design of that. So introduced flexible feature packages, like easily being able to inject things like subscriptions or omni-channel into the pages, your PLPs, your PDPs, and then powerful CLI tooling, which accelerates the developer experience as well in terms of onboarding and deployment. And the final thing is we upgraded authentication with flexible identity provider support. So whether you're integrating single sign-on or your third-party logins for your shoppers, it's all configurable, all out of the box. And then alongside that, we also launched our integrated storefront hosting, which basically delivers global performance through easy deployment, zero configuration, scaling, and seamless preview environments for content and design. And then I would say the most strategic part of Engage is something that we've had from the beginning. It's just something that we haven't ever really spoken about. So I would call it a bit of a relaunch. And we've put an official name to it, which is multi-dimension. And we've really built Scayle from the ground up to support how global brands grow, whether that's launching into new regions, as I mentioned earlier, managing multiple brands or multiple brand concepts, or onboarding new merchants or shops, or whether you're scaling to serve tens of thousands of users, or whether they're internal or external. So whilst this capability's always existed, we're now bringing that forward. And because that's one of our clear differentiators, that you don't really need to hack Scayle to scale your business. So whether you want to spin up a second brand, move into Southeast Asia, or operate with distributed commercial teams, what multi-dimension does is give you that native structure and governance to make that really easy. And what we're doing is we're hiding all of that complexity, and most importantly, enabling our users to manage all of these things from one instance. There's no middleware or multiple instances that are stitched together. So in short, the Engage pillar is about building foundations for that long-term brand relationships, from faster loading storefronts to frictionless logins to the operational depth that's required for true enterprise growth. So that's one.
I know that's so you've been busy then, because these I think often the foundational elements are the bits that are underappreciated in technologies, but they're critical, because if you get that bit right, then the ability to execute is simplified. So yeah, it's interesting to hear that you've been doing a lot of foundational work.
Yeah, I mean, the storefront is foundational. I'd say, as I mentioned, like with multi-dimension, we've had that for such a long time. It's sort of more of a relaunch, just so people understand, or businesses understand, that we have all of that. Enterprise complexity is one of our key areas where we really excel. So we just wanted to make it shine, essentially. And then the next area that's pretty major for us was about conversion. And so what we did is we want to help our customers understand about converting those high intent visits into revenue, and how do we help do that? It's our new headless checkout, which delivers a truly composable experience. So you can drop our checkout SDK into any front end, run A/B tests, and iterate quickly without complex back-end reworks. And then we didn't stop there. This is one of the most exciting things I think they keep talking about internally, is we've launched dynamic slots and a visual checkout editor, so that basically your businesses can add things like trust signals or upsells or content blocks wherever they want in specific areas. There's loads of areas on the checkout, but then also test and preview those changes visually in real time without writing any code. And so before anything goes live, you can see where everything is. And we've also refreshed the entire design of the checkout flow. So it's a modernized user experience, mobile optimized, and it's built to support dark mode and localization. So it looks very sleek and very nice. I'd recommend checking that out as well on the website. And then under the hood, we're now offering granular payment confirmation. So you can easily manage all of your payment methods per market. You can prioritize them, so you can move them up and down in terms of priority, whichever channel, whether it's mobile or online. And we enable express payment methods as well, like Apple Pay, Google Pay, just with a single toggle. So just making it super sleek, super easy. And we've also got AI-powered translations across 20 languages, which are built specifically for commerce, so helping to streamline content operations for global teams by removing that sort of overhead of manually localizing each product, promotion, or checkout content. So in short, Convert's been about reducing drop-offs. We know what conversion is, improving user experience and increasing the speed to purchase with full control.
Yeah, checkout's such a big complex bit where actually businesses don't want to have to custom build it. They want a core function in checkout that is going to be compliant, but that they can extend. So it's where the market's moving to. So that makes a lot of sense. Excellent.
Yeah. And then we've got two more. So what Optimize is basically about once our customers are active and they're live, what's the next challenge? It's how you optimize those operations and make smart decisions every day. So what we wanted to invest in is how our customers can optimize their own experience and the usage of our platform. So first of all, it's our Scayle panel, which is, we'd say, at the heart of everything, what provides that unified user experience in a unified a unified experience in a unified panel, essentially. So it's a unified workspace for managing the products, the pricing, the campaigns, and everything else. You can even manage your marketplaces, you can manage add-ons, everything all from one place. And we've designed it to serve both tech-heavy and tech-savvy operators and business teams as well. So you've got customizable dashboards, you've got granular access rights, you've got deep visibility across brands and regions. Again, this is something that we've had from the beginning. Again, it's something that we've not shouted about. So it's sort of a relaunch, as I mentioned. But one thing that is new is that we've introduced this Smart Start dashboard, which is essentially personalized to each user, and it surfaces key metrics, key things that user wants to hear about before they start their day so they can make smarter decisions. It's tailored to that user's role. There's customizable shortcuts. There's reports that user will see as soon as they log in. So whenever they land on that page in the morning, they know where they need to start working and what needs to get done. So that's something we're super proud of. And then we've also embedded within this panel our analytics hub. Again, this is something that's been around for a little while, but we've not talked about it. And so these are out-of-the-box dashboards for key e-commerce KPIs like conversions or traffic splits, basket analysis. And then we also have custom reports as well as export options for teams who want to export all of their data in these custom reports, and subscriptions to multiple reports. So things like search analytics, promotions, cohort analysis. There's multiple reports that you can basically subscribe to. And then finally, when it comes to product discoverability, we've basically launched two key areas. We've got smart sorting keys that lets businesses control the priorities that they want, so they can surface products that would meet the goals of their customers, but also their own business priorities at the same time. So we've launched 9 different sorting keys. Things like you might want to boost top selling products, you might want to boost top sellers, you might want to optimize your inventory. So you might want to promote products that you've got loads of inventory and overstock of, and you want to get rid of those really quickly and surface those products to the top of the page. And then the next piece is around product drops, which is built-in templates and scheduling logic, which are designed to drive that hype that everyone's looking for. Product drops, you see huge retailers doing that, huge brands doing that all the time, without overloading the site performance. So the key takeaway with this one is that Scayle will help you operate smarter and run faster, but with more clarity and control, all from one place.
Amazing. And for those whose interest has been piqued, because there is obviously information on the website, where do they need to specifically go to find out about this enterprise drop?
So if you go on the website, you'll see a tab called Enterprise Evolutions in the homepage, in the navigation at the top, and you can just click that and you can go straight there. And you'll see an introduction video and then a huge menu of places where you can find out about these. The final one is Extend, which includes webhooks. So we've basically improved our webhook architecture, and then also data replication. So another area that we've done, which is just more about how do we grow with you? How do we help you grow? What's the next step in that enterprise complexity that we can help you with? So there are 2 key areas, webhooks and data replication, where we've also continued to innovate and help our customers.
Cool.
So yeah,
Scayle's been busy.
Yeah, we've been really busy. It's been a huge launch. But yeah, it's all in the Content Hub. There's videos, there's demos, and descriptions of all of the features as well. So we just feel like it's where commerce is going, and we're really proud to be building all of these tools that will help enterprise retailers with that enterprise complexity.
Amazing, Gurpreet. I really enjoyed that. Loved hearing about that. It's certainly, I'm certainly going to be spending more time having a look around there myself. And for those of you who might be interested, go to the website, but I've also left Gurpreet's contact details on the landing page. So if you need to reach out and you want to get a demo of anything in more detail, then I'm sure she'll be able to help you.
Absolutely. Happy to.
You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by experienced consultants James Gerd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-com strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.